Hello, Dakotan community. We're about to dive into a topic that is gripping the state of North Dakota, the Dunseith Debacle. I'd like to share a quick word of advisement. In the episode that you are about to listen to and see, there's a lot of information that's going to be shared by Mr. Charles Hoefer, which has been verified by Hoefer Group, their attorney, and in part other third parties as factual evidence. The Dakotan has not independently authenticated the materials. The opinions and views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the guests being interviewed and do not necessarily reflect my own views or the views of the Dakotan. Our goal is to provide a platform for open conversation, and that's what we're going to do. Thanks for tuning in today. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Dakotans Look into the Dunseith Debacle. That's what we've called it. Other people can come up with their names for it, but we think that should take over North Dakota. Today, I'm joined by, in studio, the person at the center of the story. Thanks for joining us today, Charles.
Appreciate you having us, Jonathan. Thank you for letting us come and talk to you about this.
Absolutely. Of course, this is something that has taken over North Dakota. Seems like there's more people that are giving it the attention that it probably deserves, and that's definitely a good thing. This is obviously the second episode that we've done in this series. We did a first episode that kind of covered the general story of what was happening up in Dunseith, and now we're going to be
basically 2021 and 2022, right up until what actually happened, is probably where we left, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so now we're going to show the evidence for the stuff that was talked about, and we got a lot of it.
Do you think there's a little bit, isn't there?
There's a little bit, and that's a good thing. I don't know if you've received much feedback or which feedback you want to talk about since the first episode. I know that there have been some things said by different people. Of the classic one is the credibility, which we kind of addressed in the first episode, and I would encourage people to look at that. Maybe there's something we can share on that today too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absent facts, right? If people can't answer allegations with facts, and today we're just going to lay out the evidence to where, how can you counter it? I mean, if it could be, I've tried to look at it from different ways too many times, and then you find more and more and more and more where you can never counter it. It's so absent facts, the only thing you can do is try to spin.
Yeah.
And if you spin, well, you say someone's crazy. You say, someone has a checkered past. You try to come up with anything you can to say, don't look over here, Right. Look somewhere else.
This isn't your first project. This isn't your first rodeo.
No.
You've done this all your life. You've shown a resume to us. And I know we talked about a lot of that in the first episode. I'm not wanting to go into the full details that we already have shown, but I do want to, again, give you the opportunity to state any case you have about your resume or anything like that.
Well, sure. I mean, it's, if you look at my background, it really comes from my father's initial work. And I mean, he started 3 U.S. #1 manufacturers in housing RVs and motorhomes. And I took a baton from him, basically working on materials development, something he pumped millions of dollars of private money into. And I did the same thing, millions of dollars of private money, working on how do we create a new style of RV that doesn't just completely fall apart in that industry. So designed the world's first carbon fiber RV, tried to take over a project that my dad had launched that didn't make it, but it's what bit the bug for me and showed me this is where things need to go. And then for the last 10 years, I've been working on the same project.
Right.
And have done things for fractions of the costs of others because we negotiate well. We partner with global suppliers. We do all of our own engineering in-house without having to pay lots of other big salaries or consulting firms. And we do things which you've seen yourself at the plant.
Yep.
Pretty cool. And we can't talk about it.
That's
or
right.
Else
That's not good for me.
No, I won't go there, but it's there's some cool stuff already in Dunseith that has nothing to do with the things we're talking about today, and which is actually our business.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah. But no, I think maybe just show, I mean, I know you've got a few things ready, but it's my first project that I did. I helped build a big water park and then did a pro sports event. But then in the industry, I created the world's first carbon fiber RV. And this is just a video that you're loading up that has a bit of a launch of that.
Yeah, so if our tech works today, it's going to be a great day. Otherwise, it's still going to be a good day. So
there we go.
Here we go. Check this out.
Wanted to share with them our expertise in carbon fiber and composite material to design a unique unit that surely will change the world in RV market.
This is the CR1 Carbon, and we are very excited to be able to show you the world's first all-carbon fiber RV. What we have right here is an RV that is built without screws, without fasteners, and it is about half the weight of things that stand in the conventional industry. The 35-foot RV typically would weigh in the 10 to 11,000 pound range and is being comfortably towed with an SUV. The net effect of this is that we should be able to increase MPG by up to 100 to 150% while towing. In addition to that, the structure of this unit is on an order of magnitude stronger than any RV that has ever existed before it. So we've been able to take the weight out, and by pursuing the carbon fiber technologies, we've been able to pump so much more back into the product. It's the first of its kind in North America.
Incredible.
So, yeah, that was the first and only time I've ever worked with Chinese capital. And they tried to move the project to China for tens and tens of millions of dollars in cashable grants. I said no and split, and then have been running a family project ever since.
Gotcha.
And basically, we run circles around that tech with the things that we do today.
Right.
I think you've got another article pulled up just showing...
Let's go ahead and show that one.
Some of our African demos. So we still today have a facility running in southern Africa in a country called Eswatini. I have an engineering and development team over there that also works in aspects of this project.
This is you guys right here, right?
Yep, there's me, our president, and my spouse, Andrea Kin. To the left, one of our production managers, and her father, Kin, and then the U.S. ambassador, and then the Eswatini Minister of Commerce.
Okay.
And so we built and developed a number of prototypes using basically new technology. So while they look like kind of your normal sort of, the one on the left is an Australian themed build, the other two are kind of like your U.S. teardrops. What's different about those units is that there's not a screw holding them together.
Oh, wow.
And you can hit them with a hammer, and you can't get through the sidewalls. And so they were designed for off-road use, hail resistance, etc. And as you know, what's in Dunseith looks nothing like that. The designs themselves that are our final designs are actually always been concealed. Although they're sitting up at the shop now. Shop meaning our 10-acre, 100,000 square foot industrial site that we rebuilt in Dunseith. And in Africa, they hit COVID just after we started to show some of our product and started to want to set up for doing some initial pre-runs from over there. And in the country, they shut down for like 6 straight months. Where you pretty much had to fight with police just to get to the grocery store. They really took it serious. And then after that, Eswatini was the first country in the world to lose a world leader to COVID. The prime minister passed away. And then that tightened up things even more. So all the luxury hotels and resorts in the country became quarantine centers. About every half mile down the road, you had a fever check. I mean, it was crazy.
Wow.
And so, then if you show 2021, a bank executive from Eswatini just had made a comment to me kind of assessing the situation that a hungry belly makes an angry man. Right. And the thing that happened was during COVID, South Africa provided a lot of economic relief to people. In Eswatini, they asked the businesses to do it. And we did keep a lot of people on payroll for a very long time. And a lot of businesses did not. And a lot of people got very hungry and very angry.
Right.
And publicly, they made it look like it was an attempt to try and overthrow the king. As delicately as I could describe the situation, and we were very close with the U.S. Embassy when I was over there, it was quite a bit of indiscriminate targeting against foreigners generally. So we had some relatives whose neighbors had their cars blown up and their houses raided. We ourselves were targeted. In the estate we lived, several nights there were 1,000 people trying to overrun our area, and there were big police and military standoffs. And then the response was indiscriminate military shooting for a while, which, it was a difficult situation, and it's hard to know how they were really going to regain control of the country, because about 10% of the population was in a full riot. So this was middle of 2021, while we were actually shopping U.S. sites and where we were going to go. And that was how this factory here, we were very much ready to do a smaller site.
Okay.
Keep it a little closer to what was my original home. And this site coming up on the radar where it was large enough to do the bulk of the work, you can see a lot of burned out cars and trucks there. We were told very clearly that if we rolled our units out of the country, they wouldn't make it.
Wow.
So then if you go, you can note the next link there. The U.S. ambassador took gunfire during those events as well.
Wow.
Shut down the brand new $180 million embassy and left about 100 of us Americans behind. So we kind of saw Afghanistan coming.
Right.
And then the next article just explains when we made the transition and closed on the purchase of the building here in RV business, and talks a little bit about the heartbreak with Eswatini, but the message that we got from Dave Lehman with ND Commerce, which was he was contacting me and I was trying to reach back to him during the riots, and it's like, we can just build them here. And
right.
That was actually a request by the state that we completely close our African operation, but we couldn't because so much of our engineering team and purchasing side and a little bit of our supply chain is based there that we still had to keep some component of it. But we also have a long-term plan of doing an integration this side as well. It was very much, we've done big projects, we've done big development and research projects where we have tech on our industry that no one else has, and that other people would spend tens of millions of dollars and still probably not get there. And then buying and, rebuilding and tearing out this industrial site was basically a dream.
Right.
And it was my first, time to acquire an industrial property. My first time stepping out and going, just on my own to build a project through way into production where everything was pre-sold and still is. That brings us then to, I think we need to talk about the evidence and why we are having these discussions today and what happened when we started getting into that building.
For sure. There's a little bit of this to go through. This is probably going to be the longest podcast we've ever done here at the Dakotan.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, so we'll set a record for you there.
Yeah.
And hopefully I won't need a couple extra bottles of water, but
we'll see.
Basically, today I don't want to do a lot of talking without showing things.
Right.
I want today, now we can't show everything, right? I mean, some of the stuff the government picked up said arms export control on it. We're not going to be popping screen captures of crazy stuff, but I think we're going to show enough that fact that federal crimes happened. Yeah. They were egregious. They've created a public safety risk. They've created other government issues and risks and fraud and false claim risks. There's been a cover-up that's a whole separate issue we're going to have to discuss that took place when we were trying to clean all this mess up and finding out that our address was being misused actively. We were somehow being alleged to still be in the aerospace industry even though that place was supposed to have shut down in 2015, but as you'll see today, clearly did not. And then it was just unwinding all the lies and deception that led to getting the site, and then trying to figure out, okay, how do we get all this cleaned up, cleared out, move forward? And then when we got there and we thought we were done, it was when the state, apparently through a number of officials, became incredibly vindictive and tried to continue to suppress more issues that were surfacing. And we've been battling through that. So, it's cost us millions of dollars in reputational harm, and probably directly probably $1.5 million to $2 million that we could have already had 100 workers at the site right now and a whole bunch of units out the door, but we had to address the remediation first.
Right.
And then once it was done and we had already staged our production, just needed to bring on a little more equipment and inventory, then the state effected a full-blown sort of financial sabotage and retaliation against our business. We couldn't bring in the rest of the finance to finish it, and we've had to battle reputational conflict and state sabotage of our entity financially for the last year, which has cost another $800,000. So we keep working through it. We keep a small team at the site. We keep our other entity open as well, and we're basically ready to fire forward, and grateful that a lot of legislators are stepping in, starting to visit the site, meet with us. To those of you who have come and physically seen for yourselves, I'm grateful. Anybody else that wants to come, come. I mean, from the legislature, we want state officials to be aware of what all this is, and then that's where today we're just going to show evidence. So
let's go for it.
Should we start there?
Let's do it.
So first topic will be site closure. And I think start with that Pierce County, save that business plan maybe for last. So,
all right, let's get that on the screen.
Okay.
Give us 1 second here, and
this will
we're
be
firing.
What we want people to know is the shutdown. If you want to go to the top, just so people can see where this article is from. This was a 2015 article in the Pierce County Tribune, still searchable online when Benchmark closed. And just go down to the missile part if you would. I think it's, there we go. We build printed circuit boards. Some go in airplanes, some go in missiles. Our main customer is Honeywell, which sells to Lockheed, Martin, which sells to the government. You can just move on to the next piece, because I just want to sort of establish a background on, it's not my claims that this site used to do missiles and aircraft parts. This is maybe the KX one there, the way back.
There we go.
Yep. If we blow that up.
Yep, just a minute here.
Sure.
Boom.
So this is from KX News 2015 as well. If you want to go to the top so people can see. This is on the Wayback Machine because it's off KX website now, but it's still searchable in the Internet Archive. So scroll on down and let's see, there we go. At some points, well over 200 people worked in this location assembling electronic parts for U.S. military fighter planes, bombers, and missiles, and for private companies such as Boeing. By the end of this year, that 3-decade run will end. It was told to me by local and state officials that all of that ended in 2015.
2015, it's done.
Done. And in fact, it was still going on in 2023.
Wow.
A year after we bought the site. So
wow. It just not at the same scale.
Hard to know. It was
Fair.
Not original manufacturing.
Right.
But parts coming in for inspection, rework, and repair using our address.
Right.
Using bank accounts tied to our address.
After you've bought it.
After we bought it.
Because you bought it in spring of
22.
Yep.
April. Using fictitious companies tied to our address, and then trying to pin the crimes on us if it were to be basically uncovered. And so if you look at the WARN notice of 2015, so this is a state record where Benchmark was effecting its final layoff. They're the second one there, a WARN date of, I believe that says 8/31. The layoff date of November 1, 2015, 72 employees, which I believe was the final head count or all, but maybe a handful that wound up. I was told there were no employees left by the end of December.
Wow.
So, yeah, then if we go to, let's do the Star November 9 article. Scroll down.
Sorry.
Nope, no worries. It's that section where your mouse is actually pointing at. Let's see.
2,000 square foot building will soon be completely vacant. At least one, up here it says at least one business, however, will continue to occupy space in the structure. Chiptronics, which is owned by Rocky Davis and Linus Morin, will continue to operate out of the facility, according to Vice President Bill Tuttle. The business has held preliminary discussions of possibly expanding in the future, but nothing has been finalized.
Yep. And so then, rather than me explaining Chiptronics, let's pull up the business plan that we found at the factory.
Fair. So, wait. So, and this is really important for people to, pulled up the wrong thing, but this is really important for people to realize there's some of the stuff that you're actually finding in the factory after
After we bought the factory, we found enough stuff. The studio room that we're in, we could have filled to our knees with federal evidence that we found concealed throughout the property. Took us several months till we started finding it.
Wow. Because it's 100,000 square feet.
It's a 100,000 square foot building. It was broken into 13 rooms. It had roughly 150 desks and offices. It was just loaded up with factory junk. By all appearances, it had been emptied of sensitive parts and materials. The building was rotted, vacant. I like to say, it was absolutely true. There was a tree branch growing out of a toilet. It just, the building had been left to fall apart, and had it gone through one more year without us or without someone taking over and rebuilding it, I think it would have been a tear down instead of a tear out.
Yeah. So for perspective for people,
yeah,
the Costco in Bismarck is 150,000 square feet.
Okay. So
not quite as big, but almost as big
as the size of the Bismarck Costco.
So it'd be easy. Yeah. It's easy to get lost in Costco.
It's bigger than the Bottineau Walmart. I know that where we are. And there's a nice big Walmart up there, and our building footprint is bigger.
Right. Yeah. So very good sized building.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, some of the stuff we're talking about was at a government, sensitivity level that there shouldn't have been one thing there.
Wow.
And in terms of that for some of the stuff. Now, for other things, the issue becomes how it was done and how it was done wrong, which creates false claims liabilities in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and beyond.
Right. That
become huge issues, especially for a property purchaser. So we had to also work through those issues and with authorities. I think you've got the presentation ready to go. So here, and this is from the vice president of Chiptronics who drafted this business plan. So, Chip was started in 1977 as a Native American-owned distributor of electronic assemblies. To highlight there, they were not the manufacturer, and they never were. They were the distributor, and companies called Turtle Mountain Corporation, then Pemstar, then Benchmark. Those were the companies that were the manufacturer that held all the jobs. Chip held maybe 5 employees and just put stickers on boxes, shipped them out, and collected orders.
Wow. Okay.
So if you want to scroll on down, so this was their transition plan, basically. Keep on going. We'll get to the critical bits. They basically had a plan to engage as, can go on down to what their engagement plan is, right there. So Chip will continue to collaborate with the below entities to market capabilities and attract customers. And they also collected a lot of grants and financial incentive along the way of doing this. North Dakota Commerce Department, North Dakota Indian Affairs Commission, USDA, SBA, local regional PTAC, Regional Native American Development Corporation, keep going down, City of Dunseith, and then local and state elected officials, lending institutions, etc. I think we can kind of stop with this document. If you go down, it shows maybe it's worth showing their financial. So they've got go back up to the Lockheed one. Look, 2 more slides up, I think it was. 1 more up. Yep.
There we go.
So Lockheed, they've been providing battery pack assemblies, it says, for Lockheed for 20 years. There's projects with different defense contractors that they continued after closing the site. And the what and the why becomes very important later. So go on down.
To the financials?
Yeah,
Right
so
there?
then they're showing their revenues the last 3 years they operated.
So did they work with Benchmark?
So what they did is they would collect the sales, keep a little commission, and then pass the money to Benchmark.
Okay,
They were a minority contractor, basically, so they were securing the orders for the site.
I see. Okay.
Let's just stay focused on the main evidence for right now.
Yep.
There's other backstory on that we could get into. That back in the 90s, for example, Chiptronics was run by a large tribal board.
Okay.
By the time this was done, it was pretty much controlled and run by Bill Tuttle, who was not native.
Okay.
So that's worth mentioning because it's one of the focuses that some of the government people have had with us, as well as they've been trying to unwind all the situation.
Right.
So then their business plan was to basically build up a couple million in sales. Right here, try to grow back up, I think, to 5 million again, focusing the word A&D there.
Yeah. Right there.
A&D's aerospace and defense. And so they wanted the bulk of their focus to be aerospace and defense.
Gotcha.
To do aerospace and defense electronics, where you're doing solder work and other things, requires a handful of really intense government qualifications for the types of stuff that flies. And one would be like AS9100. There's another standard for solder. There's all kinds of stuff you have to do with the government's NADCAP agency, which is a standards and accreditation agency. Source inspection, whether it's third party or self-release, you have to have government approved inspectors qualified or employed by the aerospace companies themselves that are auditing you and making sure that your production and your work is always up to standard and being done the right way.
Makes sense.
You have to run a very clean facility. You have to control your humidity and your static and all kinds of things when you're working on this stuff. Worth noting, Benchmark pulled out and shut the manufacturer up and took all those certifications with them, all the machinery with them, and all the environmental controls with them in 2015.
Because Chiptronics was just
Sales company.
the sales company.
And Benchmark didn't want a competitor.
I see.
So they stripped the plant. And I've
Okay.
had multiple witnesses talk about that, and I've observed the plant in an incredibly sorry state.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
So
So that's the business plan.
yep. So that's the backstory on the facility, and this takes us through 2015 when all that old work should have stopped, and
Right.
then nothing else should have happened. And I think just to prove that things did happen, let's go to the evidence from government.
So at the end of 2015, Benchmark's closed. Chiptronics is simply a sales company, is what you're saying.
Yep.
And so Benchmark's
And always registered with the Department of Defense, what's called a DLAK registration, Defense Logistics Agency.
okay.
Always registered as a non-manufacturer.
Okay, so they didn't do
Until they
manufacturing.
dissolved in that registration in 2022. They were a non-manufacturer.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So let's go the DoD receipt 1.
Okay, let me get that pulled up on the.
Yep. Scroll up to the top
let's
there
get
if
to
you
the
would
top.
to start.
Here we go.
Okay. So it's been alleged through some people in Bismarck that there were no investigators at the site. This is actually a custody receipt from the Army Major Procurement Fraud Division.
Okay.
It's got a case number.
There you go.
Specifies potential guided multiple launch rocket system parts and documents, and then lots of other parts and documents loaded up in boxes, which they didn't want to parse out. I'll not speculate. And then down in the bottom, if you go to the next page, they actually list out those GG1320 upper covers. That's the Honeywell GG1320 digital ring laser gyroscope that will be the focus of the evidence in the discussion today.
Gotcha.
Then if you want to go down to the bottom of that page, you just note we've scrubbed out the name of the agent, but or have we?
I don't know that this one is on this
that
one.
one isn't. Then we're going to not go to the bottom.
Yeah, we won't go to the bottom of the
Basically,
page.
graded a crime scene,
Okay.
federal crime scene, on June 22nd, 2023, about 9.5 months after it should have been graded a federal crime scene. And that's
Well,
for the other podcast.
Right, yeah, for sure.
So number 2, just show the top. We've got a...
What in the world?
I don't know
It's
what
not.
happened
It's
there.
not showing though. It's not showing on the screen, so we're fine.
It's not showing on the screen, you sure?
Yep.
Okay,
I'm sure.
so we're not going to go to the bottom. So then that's documents and circuit cards for the FAA, which the Army and DoD Inspector General picked up
So
for the FAA.
basically, to clarify what he and I were talking about, some of this evidence, obviously, we did go through beforehand, and we did our best to redact as much of stuff that would be harmful to anybody, because the goal is not to go guns a-blazing and take down whomever and whatever, right? That's not what your focus is.
No, it's just to show the evidence is legit. So we're protecting some witnesses. We're protecting, some like locations or IDs of agents. We're going to try to not share all that. I mean, just some of those types of things as we go through are going to stay protected, but we're going to show a lot.
We're going to show a lot.
So there's a bunch more receipts from DoD.
Just a minute, I'm jumping around for you, but we're
I see.
good.
So don't click on the rest of the DoD receipts. There's 3 more. Let's do the FAA visit.
My bad. Okay.
Excuse me, sorry.
FAA visit.
Yep.
Coming right up.
So here, I don't know if you can blow that up so that
Yeah,
it
we'll
can
blow it
be
up.
maybe just to the scroll down a little bit. Let's get down to that big paragraph on the screen below. Yep, that one. So this is Tim Mahoney, who's a senior aviation safety inspector. And if you look at the emails up above there, Chad Foster, he was involved in national security incident response for the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. Other 2 people are connected, I believe, to Chicago and Minneapolis offices, Levi and Tim Bonder. I've dealt with Levi and Tim Mahoney directly, Tim in person, and this is the FAA's National Security Response Group asking for access to our factory to investigate the GG1320 digital ring laser gyro situation.
It's getting serious.
And that's many, many months after we started experiencing threats and stalking from agents inside North Dakota, including Agent Brejo, who's now on trial for murder.
Right. And so that stuff is going to be part of our next episode, right?
Yep. I'll just leave some cliffhangers, I guess.
Yeah, do it.
It's
be a good storyteller.
It's a mess. If you want me to be a little bit not just direct, it's that the state participated in a cover-up with Agent Brejo in the Air Force Base to try and stop this from ever happening.
Right.
They wanted me to throw away the evidence myself, which would have been another crime.
Yeah. And I think you kind of alluded to that on the first podcast a little bit.
They've tried to make me commit crimes many times over. I mean, the amount of coercion, threats, inducement, trying to get me to commit a crime so that they could get rid of me is just disgusting, frankly.
Right. For real.
So, yeah.
Where do you want to go next?
Let's do the FAA evidence request. So after we started to unwind the situation, the FAA got scared. And then once we filed an amended complaint disclosing additional evidence on the gyros, they wanted additional evidence and witnesses. And then, to our knowledge, never followed up with the witnesses.
Okay.
So you can go on to the next. And that Levi called me and had an extensive discussion with me and told me that they had full-time FAA resources to the issue.
Wow.
Tried to point me to the DoD, but also said they had a big problem and that they were working through it.
Okay.
So let me go to image 1 there. We'll just show some images.
Let's do it.
So this is my production manager in the middle, but Special Agent Anna Brown on the left, Jessica Took, former CEO of the Development Fund, on the right. Commerce was involved in the whole cleanup with agents, telling us how to do it.
Okay.
Promising more money if we did it the long and slow way that they wanted us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then reneged on all of that. You can just go to number 2. So that's a special agent from Army with Jessica took again. You can just jump through these pics.
Okay.
Go to 3. Again, took. Then let's go again.
4.
We're kind of working in the timeline here. This is at the end of the night. They were there for 9 hours.
Wow.
It's a Air Force agent looking out the window. He also worked in another division of government and told me that we were in a very dangerous situation.
Yikes.
Then keep on going. Just
There they are
show
again.
some of what they're
6,
picking up.
7.
Oh, sorry. I've just got a whole bunch of people standing around. We'll get to
They
the
were there.
evidence there. Yeah, they were there for sure. Yeah, there we go. So each one of those boxes is an oversized banker's box, and they were loading them with parts and hard drives and burned CDs showing
Wow.
stuff the site used to do and records of sales to China after the site was closed.
Yeah.
Lots of records related to the flight sensor work, guided multiple launch rocket system parts. I mean, things that we found that should have never been there. But then what was worse was right up until they arrived, there were things still going on in the community.
That's the weird part of the
And,
story.
Yeah. So Jessica, you can see there's actually helping the agents to unpack a couple of the evidence rooms. And that was the 3rd evidence collection from our site that we finally achieved. And still would like another. So we've
That's what's incredible. So you're saying there's still evidence there?
still some evidence there. The stuff that the FAA said would trigger a new level of investigation. And we were afraid of the group of agents that coalesced because we thought they were, I've been threatened by federal agents. So keep in mind, it's, when we start getting more stalking and threats and harassment, and then that group says, oh, we can't help you any further.
Mm-hmm.
It scares us. So we
Right.
whistle blew it to the Senate Homeland Investigations Subcommittee. And Ron Johnson's group immediately wanted a meeting with my attorney and I,
Okay.
and then ghosted us for the last couple of months. And we let them know that there's additional evidence and we need a proper law enforcement channel to get rid of it.
So it sounds like what you're saying is you would go get in the middle of this stuff, have this evidence stockpiled, showing them, hey, look at what's going on. They'd be interested because like, what in the world's going on? And then they begin to see the evidence and they're like, yeah, I'm not touching that.
Well, because in what we'll show is the evidence that we have is probably the only time the FAA publicly cannot say there's no safety issue involved with these discoveries.
Okay.
And it's because and we'll get there in just a minute, but
Right.
the world's most sensitive flight sensor in commercial aviation is one of the subject components of government fraud. And it could be a cause or correlation of potentially clear
Yeah, it
sky
could be.
turbulence that's been increasing lately. And there's been a lot of work we did with FAA on that.
Wow.
And then they just basically went quiet as quick as they could after one of the guys who visited our site, Tim, I watched him lose the color in his face when he saw some of the things at the site and said, oh my gosh, the government kills to protect this. I can't believe I'm seeing this. And he couldn't even figure out how it was manufactured. So there was some of that too.
Alarming. All right.
Let's see, IRS visit.
Let's go there.
So we've been working with IRS agents.
What 3-letter acronym for an agency have you not worked with?
We've worked with 11 federal agencies
11
to date, getting this all cleaned up. And the reason that they never did it right to begin with is because there's too many high-powered names connected to
Okay.
what was actually done. And you'll see that shortly here. So this is just Agent Lufman wanting to get in touch with BCI's Agent Zachmeyer to go clean the building out because Air Force OSI, according to Lufman and his cohort, just so happened to tell them that it was a bunch of fake Honeywell records for a big financial embezzlement scheme and didn't mention that they left missile parts behind.
Wow.
And left our site hung up and basically hamstrung.
Yeah.
Agent Lufman and his partner were not very pleased that
I
day,
imagine.
nor were they with Zachmeyer.
Okay, so that was the IRS visit.
Yeah, and then public records request, IRS. So here is IRS in August of 2023 asking for Economic Development Agency documents that we acquired relating to the site.
Okay.
And asking for me to get them in touch with all the different investigators and agents from FAA, Air Force OSI, Army CID, and Department of Defense, Defense Criminal Investigative Service Office of the Inspector General. So then search consent there, yep. So this would be June 22nd, 2023. If you want to zoom in a little there, what's important is the government gave us a receipt showing through, and this is signatures by Army Major Fraud and Defense Inspector General. If you go up to the top there, they're looking for documents, physical components, and hard disks believed to be associated with Department of Defense contracts for false claims and false statements, which are serious federal violations.
Wow.
And can carry huge financial consequences and extensive prison time as well.
Wow.
So then why don't we go to the BCI receipt at the top?
Let's do it.
So this was when the cover-up started, which is the separate topic, but BCI walked off the site with documents that related to the aerospace and defense crimes and then dumped it to the IRS, and the IRS was led to believe that it was fake Honeywell records of a financial embezzlement scheme.
Wow.
So,
Incredible.
Yep. All right.
You want to hit up some links,
I think we should.
or do we want to do the third
Did
collection?
we do the third collection?
I don't think we did.
What is that?
think
That's
we
just
missed
one
that one.
more.
Yeah.
That's just a better. So the other photos were off the security camera, and that's just
Yeah.
a pic of
I think
all
people
the boxes
wanna
from the
see
third
that.
collection before the agents walked off with
So
it
all this stuff in these boxes is all stuff that should not be at your facility, that is.
And some of it the government might kill to protect, according to some people who saw it.
That's right.
And
One of
I
the
mean, there was
agents-
one agent with a top secret clearance who refused to look at it because he said he might lose his clearance.
Wow, because it'd be above his clearance.
Yeah, would require additional permission, he said.
That's incredible.
And he was one of the agents who felt deceived being on the site by other agents, including
Wow.
North Dakota BCI.
Incredible.
Yep.
It's crazy. Okay,
So let's do some links.
yeah, let's do some links. Incredible so far, and let's see, we're just in the
So I guess to
second
recap there,
phase of this.
it really happened. There was a reason that a lot of federal agencies descended on this site.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people in Bismarck that don't want anyone to know that.
right. So give me a couple minutes to open this, but it's incredible just the amount of evidence that you have been able to obtain. And again, I mentioned this in the first episode that we did together, but like this isn't. It feels like this is what you do. It feels like that you are.
And the only reason I know all this is because the federal agencies told me to figure it out and
Yeah.
report to them out of state, because in state, the agents were covering up with North Dakota BCI at the base. FBI was pretending to believe Brejo, even though months later they told me they knew that there was really stuff at the factory. So we were getting no help.
Yeah.
And not only no help, but we were getting stalked, harassed,
Incredible.
hacking, stuff like that. So then out of state, they were saying, if you want us to come, send people, teams, what have you, you have to show us what you have. And I was
Right.
like, well, can I email this stuff to you? And then they would say, well, we're not authorizing you to do that, but you have to know what's there. So then we got witnesses. We got other witnesses who gave us other things to understand why it was there. And as we started to amass and collect all the evidence and report, it went very high up the chain into Washington, D.C. very, very quickly. And then I think the problem is it also goes very high up the chain into North Dakota in terms of who was associated. And so
Interesting.
it's just been a cat and mouse game ever since.
Right.
So
Oh.
this is the next thing you're going to pull up here is just to explain what the nature of false claims can do. So this was a scandal that had some ties to Minot. Department of Justice has disclosed it.
Right.
A bunch of people went to jail. Do you want to kind of blow the text up there?
Yeah. Let's do it.
So this is really, you're just talking $20 million worth of Chinese-made counterfeit U.S. military uniforms that were passed off as genuine American-made.
Okay.
That's all you're dealing with.
Right.
someone there named Rowe. It says he collected $60,000 during the conspiracy. And
hardly anything.
That's a North Dakota person who then got sentenced to 24 months in federal prison.
Wow.
We're talking about a project of potential levels of substandard and counterfeit parts that's about over $14,000 per sensor, and there's thousands involved.
Wow.
So I just kind of want to highlight that. And then if you go down, look at the agencies that are involved. U.S. Defense Criminal Investigative Service, that's the DOD, DCIS, we dealt with them.
Right.
Army Major Procurement Fraud, we dealt with them. They've been to our site, both of them. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, that's OSI. So some of those Homeland Security investigations, we've dealt with a bad agent on their side. I mean, so who's now on trial for murder. I mean, so, you know, these types of things, even when the crimes are smaller, get taken very seriously generally.
Absolutely.
So let's pull up another just to compare.
Go.
So here, this is a Honeywell. Most of the stuff at the site had Honeywell's name on it.
Right.
And Honeywell was under a government 3-year monitoring order starting in 2021, according to this U.S. Department of State document, for unauthorized exports to, among other places, China, including military electronics. Now, there were mixed in with flight sensors and near missile records and potentially a nuclear technical file laying nearby were these records that had been copied several times over, which also included a sticky note with a FedEx account number of sales to China during the year of 2019. And, you know, I think it's probably better to leave this one for the cover-up, but another cliffhanger is the bloody room at the site.
Right.
And all these state and federal officials are working with the group up until the spring of 2019, till April, May. And then all of a sudden, by August, you know, this group's still collecting grants, still working on all this stuff, and then they're just defaulted. And everybody's breaking ties, and the entity gets legally dissolved. Chiptronics, which is owned by TMC, its Chip was just a trade name.
Right.
But all of that starts to rapidly, like, officials separate. And so, you know, our belief is, and this is a belief, but it's supported by a tremendous amount of evidence that's for probably a whole separate discussion, but that there's a group that was violently intimidated off the site that was doing an army project at the site because they were recruited in by officials. And that the government found out that that work was going on alongside the other work of electronics work, and that there was all this other stuff going on at the site, which we'll show by public records in a little bit. And basically, not only was everything not compliant, but there were tremendous national security risks that were better to get rid of people than to try and deal with the mess. And I think the mess was dealt with a heavy hand. And a federal agent last fall told me that that's his belief as well, that the site was addressed once before with a heavy hand by the federal government.
Yeah.
And then we had to get in and fix it. But so here you have a company that the government says is an offender, and yet its sensors are actively transiting through the community in 2022, and by
so Honeywell's sensors are transiting through
the Dunseith community 7 years after site closure.
7 years after 2015 when Benchmark moved out.
Yeah. And after these violations were already set in stone with the State Department.
Okay.
So, and this is not me, this is confirmed by letters and audio from the lead outside counsel to Benchmark Electronics.
Wow.
Which used to run the site until 2015. Let's go to the next one. So this Boeing fine.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So this was a $51 million fine Boeing took in February of this year from the U.S. State Department. The three heads of the State Department's arms control team who hit Boeing with arms export control violations had us reporting to them in 2022 and 23.
Okay.
I'm not going to read anything else into it, except to say that here they're lumping up 199 violations using language that's eerily similar to the types of things that were reported violations as well,
right,
that got picked up off our site.
Interesting.
And again, I'm not saying that that is directly related at all.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that the types of violations that we found are the types of violations that can attract $13 and $51 million penalties from the federal government.
Wow.
So,
Serious things.
Yeah.
Next one.
Next one. This is a UK firm sold unverified jet parts, and we're talking bushings basically and bolts for GE Safran engines. They were jet engine maker CFM International, which was a joint venture partnership, I believe, of General Electric and Safran.
Wow.
So this was discovered around July of 2023. By September, alerts were being made to the general public through the media,
Okay.
saying there's potentially thousands of parts affected, and at least, I believe, 96 was the number they publicly updated of jets that have to go on the ground to change out parts for sure.
Right.
And then the FAA put out a safety bulletin. If you go to the next page. So this AOG Technics was a Venezuelan guy in the UK who ran a project that was very similar in theme to what we found, which was just making up the paperwork as they go, getting parts and stuffing them out into the aftermarket community for aerospace, and then repair shops were buying the bolts and not knowing that they were getting an untraced bolt or bushing. So
this would affect, what you're talking about, would affect both commercial and potentially military as well?
That was commercial.
That was commercial specifically?
To what they disclosed.
Yeah.
Who knows on the rest.
Interesting.
So then the FAA responded to this really quickly and put out an inspection notice. You know, they did an alert, just kind of note there, and then they disclose that, you know, there could be thousands and two engine models affected and thousands of parts. And then if you go to the next link, they quickly arrested the guy that was kind of the fraud leader through the Serious Fraud Office in the UK. So again, this is for, I guess, bushing, or I'll have to double check if bolts were involved, but I know the word bushing was used. But you know, this is something that is not a flight sensor,
right?
With a catastrophic rating in flight if it fails.
Yeah, just
this
bushings
is
and bolts.
Still important, of course, but the things that we're dealing with are worse.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah,
interesting stuff. So when it happens in other places, it's a serious deal.
It's actioned immediately.
Right.
When it happens in North Dakota, I don't know, you're supposed to throw it away and pretend you never saw it.
That's at least what some of the government officials that interacted with you told you
wanted
to do.
Me to do.
Yeah.
And I've got it in writing too.
Right, which is incredible. And I believe that some of the things in writing have been made public already, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. So it's been floating around out there for people to take a look at. So that is a lot of the evidence, receipts from government agencies showing that there was a lot of evidence at the site that the government said, yeah, there is stuff here that we need to take care of. And then showcasing
picking it up.
Yep.
And then tying it to other false claims in aircraft parts fraud where the government takes serious action.
Very serious action.
With lesser situations.
$1 million of fines, jail time for some. Very intense things. Does that do justice for that, or is there anything else?
I think that section, I think it rolls into the next section, which is, let's just pull one of the codes up there, 18 USC 38.
Okay, let's get that on the screen here.
So this one that we're going to pull up, I mean, I think we've found potentially over 15 applicable federal crimes that we needed to make sure we were unwound from, and, you know, make sure that we're declared a witness and a victim in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Once we discovered it, and we had to report immediately or else we could get pinned in this later.
Right.
Because it would be easy for others to destroy the evidence prior to 2022. Then it looks like we buy an active aerospace supplier and we screwed it up is how it looks.
Right.
Not that, we got a discharge to change the site over to RVs from the federal government, which we did, and then did that. And then, these people are fraudulently trying to still use our address. And problem is, the people fraudulently trying to still use the address are connected to all these high-level officials in North Dakota, including both our U.S. senators. So that's the problem. So
it goes high.
Yeah, fraud involving aircraft or space vehicle parts in interstate or foreign commerce. I mean, basically, I'm just going to summarize this. It's if you falsify or conceal a material fact concerning any aircraft or space vehicle part, and you go on, they have the ability to do life in prison if you cause death. They have the ability to dissolve or reorganize corporations and enterprises.
Wow.
Levy $10 and $20 million fines, et cetera, et cetera. So
they can make you feel the full weight of the government.
You don't want to get on the other side of that. And then there's another Title 34, which allows for the death penalty as well if you've got death resulting from the crimes. So,
wow. So very serious stuff that we're, again, talking about here.
Yeah. That now let's go to, just because we're talking about the world's most prolific laser gyroscope, which is an inertial reference sensor in aviation. It's critical to automated flight systems. I just want to prove that I'm not making up, beyond the evidence receipt that said, oh, there's a bunch of GG1320 covers and serial numbers. Well, here's what else there is. Let's confirm on the, do you want to do the recordings and confirm that these sensors really came here? Because once we started reporting it, it became impossible to deny it. So different people started admitting it and then trying to downplay the severity.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and pull up these recordings for you to take a listen to. Let's see here. Let's start with, sorry, my screen jumped around on me. Let's go ahead and start with this one right here.
Okay.
Just a minute. Let's not start with that one. We'll actually do it this time, okay?
I understand and I believe they put the government in a gigantic pickle. But the biggest concern I have is I think they've tied up commercial aviation in the mess as well.
Yes, and like you said, the FAA is looking into that component, and then Marlena and I, the other DoD components, are looking into the DoD flight and safety of our aircraft and missiles. So we definitely appreciate you taking the time when we went up there to show us everything and allow us to collect that evidence, and then again taking the time today to sit down with us and walk us through, because we definitely wanted to hear it from you, start to finish how this happened, and it's been illuminating.
So that was, I think there's one too many N's there in the name, but that was DCIS talking, NCIS, Navy Criminal Investigative Service, also on the interview. Couple hours of interviews after the third collection at the site, confirming that they've got a flight and missile safety review on the basis of what we discovered and was picked up off the site. And I mean, we were told by agents that the records externally out of state pertaining to our site no longer existed.
Right.
We were told that the records we found was all that was left of the scheme.
Wow.
So I think there was a lot of pressure for us to destroy it because everybody else was making sure it wasn't around, at least according to what the agents told us.
Right. We'll go to this next one here.
Yep. But the problem with this, and I mean, I know, and I appreciate you telling me you'll go to bat for me, but if someone were to, not just me to pack up and leave, but if someone were to do something to me harmfully, right?
Yeah.
How many people are going to go to national media and say, this is what happened, this is what he was reporting? I mean, Shaden last year told me he'd go to the mountaintops and shout it to media the very next day if the AG wouldn't meet with me, and then didn't call me for 4 months. You see what I mean?
Yeah. And like I said, and all I know on that was that it was being like, okay, we understand what's going on, okay, we get it, and then it hit a point of like, hey, there's really been going on, and that's when, like you said, that's when I came out. But as soon as that was, I came back and said, hey guys, this legitimately is what's going on. It's never been a question of, disbelief from there on.
No, I don't mean disbelief, but I mean, how many people will really have the courage to tell this story if they see someone gets an attempted murder or something for telling the story?
Yeah,
I mean, the point being, like, of all the people that have knowledge of this situation right now, the fact of the matter is the government is still doing a very good job at trying to limit the distribution of the awareness of the fact that parts that didn't have proper custody or proper work conditions might be sitting in civil aviation right now, potentially opening up to huge risks of wrongful death or civil action against airline industry on the basis of what we discovered.
I can completely understand that from that perspective, but like just because, like I said, I mean that would cause mass hysteria, and there would be no choice but to shut down, and there would be no air travel by any means, So like I get it from that aspect, but I just don't see how on the other like flip side of it, there's no way to quiet if someone were to all of a sudden disappear. That everyone else who knows about it is going to go, oh, okay, I'm just not going to say anything now.
Except they did that when the Texas guys left. So just to clarify, that was Jessica Took and me on the call discussing Shaden.
Right.
He wasn't actually on that call, though. But she very clearly understands that if the government acknowledges what's there seriously, that jets go on the ground. And we've heard that from people in the aerospace industry. I mean, a prominent aerospace attorney who worked for us for a time and then told us he worked for one of the defense contractors whose name was on the stuff and said they'll never admit it and they're really mad at you.
Right.
And then refunded our money.
Nice.
So, yeah, which one is next?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. We'll hit up recording 2.
So here's Agent Zach Meyer from BCI. And this
a local guy that was stealing from you. That's the case I have. Then the tax stuff I gave to, there's actually from Rugby. He's now in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He's an IRS investigator. I turned those documents over on Shiptronics to him, and that's the one I want to come up and see if there's any other documents related to Shiptronics for the tax violations and the laundering of money.
Okay, what about the documents that you took that were from Shiptronics to Benchmark, those invoices that I thought were fake?
Yep, IRS has all those.
Okay, those are real invoices for GG1320 flight sensors.
Yeah.
Those are Honeywell flight sensors that go in military and commercial jets.
I showed them the Honeywell stuff. But
What's that?
I showed them the Honeywell stuff.
So that's Agent Zach Meyer confirming that it was real GG1320 stuff, said he showed the IRS the Honeywell stuff, and yet the IRS, when they came to the site, thought it was fake.
Wow. It's crazy. Go to the next one.
Yep.
Are you aware that Benchmark is still using our address and packages keep coming into the community?
And that's, I am, but I'm not, because Charles Tuttle's right in the middle of this yet, and that's why the IRS I thought was a good resource to start looking at the tax laws.
I want to make a clarification on this because we actually brought this up. There are 2 names said together really fast in this sentence.
One is Charles Hoefer and one is Bill Tuttle.
Right. And so there needs to be a clarification of that. We're not trying to bring anybody who would go by the name Charles Tuttle into it. It was simply Agent Zach Meyer was addressing you, Charles, talking about
Charles
Bill Tuttle.
Bill Tuttle is still right in the middle of this, he says, and this is in March of 2023, many months after the cover-up and the conspiracy had begun, trying to silence me on the site.
Right.
So he's admitting in that call there, acknowledging that he knows the packages are still moving through the town. I said, are you aware? He says, I am, but I'm not.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure how you can be.
Right.
To be or not to be, Craig. I mean, Agent Zach Meyer needs to make a decision here on how aware he wants to be.
Right, yeah.
And preferably do something rather than I've had a lender allege that Zach Meyer contacted him, met with him, supposedly investigating Tuttle, but called me a dirty crook.
Oh, wow.
Zach Meyer sat in a room with me in the IRS for several hours where they were very upset, and they recorded us and recorded all my statements. And at the end of it, Zach Meyer looked at myself and another one of my employees. My attorney was also present, but he looked at me and the employee and he said, you really don't know what you found there, do you? And we were like, yes, we could figure it out. We know what's there.
Right.
And then he just shook his head. And so since then, I've heard him make some very unsettling comments, including a former officer who's reported that he said he's surprised I'm still alive.
It's an incredible statement right there. All right, we got a couple more of these recordings. Okay. This one, I believe, is with Benchmark.
So this is Benchmark. I'll just frame this quick.
Go ahead.
We did an initial lawsuit under instruction from Commerce to try and get the site cleared up.
Okay.
And so Benchmark was named, Tuttle was named, a bunch of John Does were named. We had no idea at the time that even if we didn't name state people in, somebody else probably would in order to try and deflect liability. And that was even hinted in a court filing that Benchmark made, noting that public officials may have had some form of responsibility.
Okay.
I forget the exact phrasing in the filing, but it pulled a piece about public officials being involved in the site and put some emphasis in that.
Okay.
Just by their republishing of that statement.
Right.
And so here, Benchmark is acknowledging that they used to do GG 1320 gyro work at the site, and then basically saying they can continue, and they don't know yet that we found a whole bunch of electronic stuff.
Wow. Okay, play recording 5.
Honeywell's, as we understand it, Honeywell's primary end users are commercial airlines. And the other way we know this is an ITAR part is because you can tell from the drawings that we've got. So this is not any kind of government IP related to this part. Back before 2015, before the Benchmark operation in Dunseith shut down, what happened was this upper assembly, including all of these electronics that you see, this sort of circuitry here that you see, was all done in Dunseith. After 2015, the electronics were all, the whole thing was initially shifted to Rochester and all done by Benchmark in Minnesota. At some point, actually September of 2016, which is exactly what you've alleged in your complaint, a piece of this started being done by Chiptronics in Dunseith. But here's the piece they did. When these gyroscopes would come back as a return or for upgrades, the electronics would be taken out. So all of the guts that you see here, all of this, the green, the circuitry that you see here would be taken out in Minnesota. The can, literally the aluminum can that it's in, the cover that it's in, would put in a FedEx package or UPS package, and shipped to Dunseith. And the folks in Dunseith, there was a group of women, and what they would do is they would remove the epoxy residue that would be on there. Then they would ship them up, and they would return them back to the folks in Rochester, who in the meantime would have done whatever it is they needed to do with the electronics, the guts. They'd put it back together. They'd send it to Honeywell. Honeywell would do whatever it needs to do with an end user. So does that sort of, at least what I've stated, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
about
I understand.
how that happened?
Yeah.
Right. And so the pieces where I think things got disconnected is there must have been some conclusion jumped to that the folks in Dunseith are somehow doing something with the electronics. This cover, working with this cover, removing the epoxy from the cover, doesn't require any kind of special clean room, any kind of factory facility at all. It doesn't require what they call ICPJ standards, which have to do with if you're working with electronics. It doesn't require ESD standards, which have to do with if you're working with electronics. It is literally an aluminum can that's being worked with in Dunseith. I believe it was like $9 a part or something that they would get for removing this epoxy. So there's nothing ITAR about removing the epoxy from that can. There is nothing like, super top secret about doing it. It's just removing epoxy from a cover. And that is something that does not have to be done in any kind of particular environment. There's no sort of technical or safety reason that it can't be done in a residential house, in a residential garage, in the local bingo hall. There's no reason it has to be done in a special location. They're literally taking off the epoxy, and this was something that could continue to be done by these folks on the field.
So I would argue that 18 USC 38 is a pretty good reason you don't want to take it to the bingo hall.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was Aaron Bradham, lead outside counsel for Benchmark Electronics with the Denton's law firm in Arizona.
Okay.
That was speaking there. Then we disclosed that, yes, we are working with more authorities after the lawsuit, and that, yes, there were electronics and there are records and receipts showing other things besides the work that you told us. And then a couple of weeks later, we had another call with our counsel in Aaron Bradham, where she quickly tries to distance herself from Tuttle, or tries to distance Benchmark from Tuttle.
Okay, well, let's play that one.
Our view is that Benchmark's local agent, Mr. Tuttle, was doing these things on behalf of his enterprise with Benchmark, and that, yes, he was trying to maintain access to portions of the facility to do work in there and then out in the community. And for whatever reason, keeping the address as the at least on paper, home base of this stuff, the 19 South 2nd Street address. Let me ask you, why did Benchmark and third parties on behalf of Benchmark continue sending parcels to the site into February 2023?
Right. So I think that this actually is I think it's a good question you ask, and I think it's actually quite helpful in terms of why we are so puzzled by why the allegations are being made against us. Obviously, if Benchmark knew that Tuttle was no longer had access to that address, it wouldn't be sending him things there. Obviously, Benchmark had that as the address for Chiptronics, so that's the address it's sending to. And so it's hard for us to understand how Benchmark is sort of in league with Tuttle if as is obviously the case, it didn't know that he had moved on to a different address.
What address is on the approved Honeywell deviation?
There is no address
really?
that says this is the address where the work has to be done.
All right, I understand.
That's the point. There's no address. There's no need from Benchmark's perspective for the work to be done at that location. It did not know it was being done at a different location, but there's no need for it to be done at that 100,000 square foot industrial facility. And so that's where we really struggle with, if we're in on this, if Tuttle's our agent, why the heck didn't we know that he no longer had access to that address, and for years we should have been sending it to a different address.
So just to point out there, that's a company responsible for aspects of the GG1320 digital ring laser gyroscope, saying for years they didn't know that Tuttle no longer had access to our address.
Right.
So that's why they're sending them to us, because if they knew, they wouldn't have been sending it to us. This is a sensor that in a 2010 or 11 newspaper article or online article about its sale to the military is going for over $14,000 a piece. We didn't know where we were sending it.
They didn't know where we were sending it, but then they also said they don't care where they send it as long as it gets done.
They can do it in the bingo hall,
right?
Yeah. Residential. It's okay, I guess.
That's Benchmark's point of view on it.
And these are serialized components. These are serialized aerospace components that have to have full trace.
Okay.
They have to have end-to-end conformance. They have to have an audit trail. The government needs to be able to follow them if there's an aircraft incident, and they need to go back to points of location of work, who worked on it, which stations that were qualified were touching it. This is not something that you can just ship around to bars and houses and call it good. That's why our address was always on those packages, because on paper, we were still the address.
Right. Now, they also mentioned that there was, the Benchmark representative mentioned that it was just epoxy work that was being done.
No. I mean, I can just say no. We found circuitry. We found records of dedicated circuitry work. Not going to show those today because some of them also appear to be potentially missile part circuitry.
Okay.
Based on what was recovered at the site.
But you have them.
We have them, records of, and the Department of Defense has them.
Okay.
Records of circuitry related to master connectors and Hubbard plugs. I mean, there's a $1,700 charge in one record for setting up the Hubbard plug, which is the master external connector for the 1320 gyro sensor. Right. None of the covers that we found were empty. They all had various master connections attached to them, and or electronics, and or separately we found electronics. And then on the records and invoices that we found extensively the words rework, repair, and cleaning.
Okay.
And I'll talk about it a little later, but some of the instructions were deliberately faked. Some of the transactions were instructed to stay off the BAN ledger, which is an audit system. So
EAAN.
EAAN. So they were supposed to not be traced. Other shipments were sent into Dunseith as miscellaneous item codes. No value cost item, they would call it. And then they would footnote it and say, these are covers to Dunseith for cleaning. Cover is the reference to the upper cover of the GG1320 assembly. And one of the packages that came after we bought the site said static sensitive on the package.
So wait, so after you bought the site, because Benchmark doesn't care, and is it Benchmark sending that package, or do you know?
It came from Benchmark Rochester.
Okay, so
it had second instructions on the packages to take them to the bar.
Because they don't care where this package goes, but
I don't want to speak for them,
right? But I'm just saying, when I say that, I'm referencing what the attorney said, where
the attorney said there's no reason it can't be done there,
right.
But they also said that they didn't know it was being done elsewhere, but their own people were putting labels on boxes saying 10 North Main, which is Garden Tap Tavern downtown bar.
Wow. But it's supposed to be in a static environment.
It should be.
If
it's static sensitive,
is what the box
it's
said.
It's got to be in a very controlled environment. And not only that, they're using our address on the parcel as the official shipping label address.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we got a couple more things to go through in this area.
Just pull up the attorney letter there. Just in case no one believes the audios, we've also got a letter.
Okay.
I mean,
got it all.
Corroborated many times over. I don't want to say we have the receipts, but in this case, we have the receipts.
We have the receipts.
So just scroll to the yellow stuff there. It's all work being done by Chiptronics in connection with the GG1320 was above board and pursuant to that legitimate, not secret relationship. Starting in September 2016, former Benchmark employees employed by Chiptronics removed epoxy from empty containers used to house 1320 electronics. So I'm just going to say the entity belonging to Chiptronics was legally dissolved in 2020. Parts were entering Dunseith in 2023 under the name Chiptronics.
Okay, so we have a little bit of a timeline building here. In 2015, Benchmark leaves
Closes,
Dunseith.
Gone.
Done.
Once the building shut down and scrubbed out and no longer, capable of competing against it.
Chiptronics, sales company, maybe it's dabbling in other stuff too.
Chiptronics, so the city of Dunseith then takes the north half of the property that Benchmark owned. The city owned the south half under federal liens. Okay. The north half goes on November 16, roughly 2015, goes to the city of Dunseith for $1, negotiated by teams from Hoefer, Kramer, and Bergam.
Wow. Okay.
And then Chiptronics takes a lease on roughly 30,000 square feet of that facility.
Okay. And so Chiptronics is operating, and then in 2020, they're done.
2019, they stopped filing business entity reports in 2018.
Okay.
They get defaulted around August 2019. They're legally dissolved for being in bad standing in the TMC Inc. in the beginning of 2020 in March. And almost 3 years later, we're still capturing packages coming into town from Benchmark.
You're still capturing packages 3 years after they've been dissolved. You mentioned TMC Inc.
was the entity that owned the trade name Chiptronics.
Okay.
The Chiptronics trade name was legal or was deactivated in 2018, I believe. So FAA's Mahoney, when he came to the site and realized, because he said that he received paperwork from I won't say the name, but a major defense and aerospace contractor that said that we bought Chiptronics.
Wow.
And he said, I don't see what the problem is. They're running in your building. And I said, no, they're not. They're running in the bar. And that was kind of like his first short circuit where he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, we're an RV company. Yeah. And so then as we go through, by the end of the night, once we show him where to find that TMC Inc. doesn't exist anymore, he said he'd never seen that before. Interesting. So he thought you had bought what was left of Chiptronics. He claimed he had paperwork that said that I was still actively in the GG 1320 supply chain. Do you believe him? I believe the paperwork, if it was actually sent to FAA, was faked. Right. No, but I understand that. I don't doubt that he came to the site believing that he was going to see an aerospace plant. Huh. I think he was actually prepped for that. Right. Interesting. And I think he was shocked. Yeah, he's shocked and slightly upset. He told me everybody lied when he left after spending an entire day at the site. He stayed till late evening. And he said, okay, everybody lied. I'm going back to Honeywell. And that's the last I ever heard from him or saw him. He said he was coming back for his stuff 2 weeks later, and he made the Army pick it up. Wow. So everybody, and who was he talking about as being everybody? Everybody. He was talking about all these different aerospace and defense people that he was meeting with. He named a few of them. Right. Said who he had been to, who he was pulling evidence and documentation from. And he said there were no records of anything he'd been coming back to Dunseith after 2015 that he could find. Interesting. Okay. So, yeah, then I think let's do the Atlas rocket. So here we'll just kind of blow through, again, what is this GG 1320? Dun, 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 dun. So it's on the Atlas rocket. If you scroll down here, we're just going to go down to the bottom of the second page. So they're bragging right there. They're bragging that they've got a 5 gyro unit because it's fault tolerant with 5 ring laser gyro GG 1320s, because previous units only came with 3 ring laser gyros and 3 accelerometers, so a failure caused an immediate problem. It's according to a Honeywell program manager. So in commercial aviation, a lot of your inertial reference units have 3 gyros. Okay. So I'll just leave it there, and we've got documentation to prove that as well. What's a gyro? Digital ring laser gyroscope. It's basically, they call it an inertial sensor. Very much responsible, and we'll pull that up in just a moment, actually, all the different flight controls. Let's go to the Laser 6 brochure there. Yeah. So here's a brochure from Honeywell. There we go. Okay. Scroll on down to page 3. Oh, right there. So they make a lot of different generations of this product. If you can read that on screen, it's a little small for me here, but it's basically on the Dreamliner, the 777X. Their different variants of their system are on approximately, I believe it's 80% of commercial Western aviation. It's the most used inertial flight control sensor in commercial aerospace today. Wow. So if you go on down, let me just see where we're at. Keep going. Technical overview. Yeah, we're going to go down. Yep. There. So this ARINC 429 outputs, this inertial reference unit, which consists of 3 laser gyros and 3 accelerometers. It controls body frame, longitudinal, lateral, and normal accelerations, pitch, roll, and yaw rates, pitch and roll angles, pitch and roll attitude rates, flight path angle and flight path acceleration, inertial vertical speed and inertial vertical acceleration, platform heading, turn rate. I mean, the list goes on. You kind of get the point. It's an important control sensor. Honeywell does more than just put the thermometer on the wall. They're balancing the airplane. This isn't the in-flight entertainment monitor. Yeah. And then if you go on down, you'll see the gyro. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it. I mean, this isn't the overhead bin that they're working on for this plane. So yeah, keep going. A little further. There we go. A little further. Okay. And so there's your gyro right there. Found all kinds of this stuff at the site. Go up.
Really? You found stuff that looked like this?
Found a lot of stuff that looked like that. If you go up, other way.
Got too excited.
No worries. So, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, but just note that the software connected to that gyro, because here's the GG1320 DigiGyro.
Mm-hmm.
If you go down to characteristics there where it says DO178B Level A certification, just remember that because we're going to talk about that a little bit later. It's the
certification
highest
level.
Safety certification rating in the FAA.
Okay.
Catastrophic, can cause crash and fatality if it fails.
Wow.
So
very severe.
Yeah. All right.
So basically what the gyro does is it keeps the plane balanced. It lets it know when things are unstable so that way it can have that data.
If you're flying a small plane and it's all direct controls, like, either hydraulic or, just urine control as a pilot, you're in pretty good luck. If you're flying like a Dreamliner or you're flying like a 737 and, it's very widely known, like they built the engines really, really big on the new variants of like Maxes and stuff. So the plane wants to fly trim high. So then you got to constantly make adjustments to keep it on its proper pitch. So that 1320 is a part of the unit that keeps that plane in check.
Interesting.
And it's widely used with so many functions and applications. I mean, it's used in rockets. It's used in the Mars rover. It's used in submarines. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's a navigation aid. They call it a flight stability aid. I mean, it's basically critical to automated systems.
Wow. Okay.
So then, do the 500K gyros. So, I mean, here's Honeywell promoting this sensor. This is the 1320 sensor. And, their 500,000th unit came around the COVID time.
Yeah, when is this article written? Does it say?
I don't see the date there, but I believe it was 2020 or 21. And I could find out the exact date.
Yeah.
So basically they're saying if you've flown on a commercial or business aircraft, chances are your pilot relied on data from RLGs, which is GG1320 ring laser gyroscopes, to get you to your destination. You'll also find RLG-based navigation, stabilization, and pointing systems on military aircraft, land vehicles, and unmanned underwater vehicles for oil and gas exploration. RLGs have out-of-this-world uses too, providing precise position data for the International Space Station and NASA missions to Mars. RLGs are scattered throughout our solar system, and some even exiting as they travel to the reaches of our outer space. RLGs have safely navigated spacecraft to rendezvous with comets to collect cosmic dust samples, etc. So, I mean, basically, they're promoting that this is a pretty reliant, flight critical thing.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. So that's enough there. So
we'll keep moving here. We got one more here you want to show?
Yeah, we did that brochure. We did the rocket one. I think
did this one?
There was a link on the recordings there.
Okay.
If we go back to there.
Yeah, let's go grab that link. Sorry.
No problem. Just want to show people that you can see a price online of these things. I'm not just making up a price.
Okay. Let's get that browser up.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Okay, so here's a 2011 article about a purchase of gyros for F-18, FA-18 combat jets. If you go down, you'll note in here there's the GG1320 ring laser gyro. They note a purchase of 27 gyros as spare, and they note 714, and they say the contract is $10.6 million. I believe that comes out to around $14,300 a unit.
Wow.
And that's 2011 money.
Yeah, it's a couple presidents ago.
Yep. A few.
Yeah. It's been a while.
A few inflation rates ago since the last couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, but that just shows that this is it's a pricey little fist-sized thing, palm-sized sensor.
Incredible. So at this point, we got the site closure. Recapping, I know we're
site's closed.
Site closed.
All that work is supposed to be gone.
Yep, not supposed to be happening. There's this RV manufacturing company that's moved into this 100,000 square foot building in Dunseith. They're excited to get started. Takes a ton of remodel. They get to the middle of the remodel. They're like, hey, what's this? They call in government agencies and
immediately start getting threatened.
Start getting threatened. And obviously, as you began to look into it, there was some research that you did, and you're coming across this data like, okay, this is actually kind of a big deal.
We very quickly realized if we ignore this or if we throw it away ourselves, then we could walk out in handcuffs months or years later because the crimes get pinned on us.
Right. Benchmark's like, it ain't us. We just send stuff for epoxy cleaning. That's all we do. Can be done anywhere. And so everybody begins to see what's happening, and nobody wants to lay claim or responsibility to it.
It takes a long time. And in the meantime, it costs a tremendous amount of money, and commerce tells us, say, do what we say, follow us, and we'll take care of you financially for the burn. And they didn't want us. I mean, we had media nationally that wanted to come to the site and show what the government was forcing us to live. I mean,
but they didn't want that.
They try to charge Trump because they say he's got classified stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't charge Biden because they address, I guess, his age and faculties in their decision not to charge. But they just recently released the picture of the cases of things that were in his closet at the university area, I believe it was, where he had all this classified stuff. And, we find actual missile parts, and no one wants to come.
Not just like a schematic.
No,
an actual
we
missile
found schematics
part.
too, and we found burned CDs that said they had CAD files. We found all kinds of stuff, but we also found actual missile sensor parts for what were literally labeled as to the guided multiple launch rocket system.
And that was
the number one missile procured by the Army.
Which is crazy. And that's not just you saying that, because if we remember, I believe there was this little evidence receipt that said that.
Yeah.
So that's an expert, if you would.
So they said specified by complainant as most probably relating to the guided multiple launch rocket system. They're not even going to confirm it to me.
Right.
But it was labeled as to that system. And from the little bit that you can glean off the internet, it was pretty obvious. Plus, we had all the schematics and specifications from Lockheed and elsewhere pointing to this is what this is, and schematics showing this is what it looks like. So it was pretty obvious this is what it is.
It's crazy.
And we didn't want it because parts of, if it was also used, or if other things were used as guided missile system designed to destroy aircraft, then those things become a potential terrorism crime under U.S. law with like a 25-year prison sentence. So we knew this has to get off this property.
Right.
This is an RV company. We have no government contracts. We don't work for the government. This shouldn't have been left here.
Right.
And then we find the scheme still ongoing. Our mail is getting sifted.
Right.
Until this year, our house, our address with FedEx was a White House on the other side of town.
So
we just got it corrected this year.
Your 100,000 square foot
factory
warehouse
was a residential address, and FedEx insisted that they delivered an order to the right place when we used them for the first time this year.
Weird. So, I mean,
yeah.
Because, I mean, personally, when my mail doesn't get delivered to me, I kind of get upset. So that would be taken care of. If there was something going on, I would have had that taken care of a long time ago.
Myself and one other person who's, a manager of our company, who also was with me when we were threatened by the postmaster in Dunseith that if we didn't like the arrangement where our physical and P.O. Box mail was being sorted every week, then they would just return everything to sender.
Okay.
And that was during the period of the cover-up.
So they said, we won't deliver it to you. We'll just send it back to sender.
Send
if you
all
don't
your
want
mail
us
back if you don't want us to feel out Chiptronics and TMC mail.
Crazy. Okay.
So, how's that for... So then this is just a little bit additional confirmation that people knew what was going on. So let's go Zach Meyer text 1.
Let's find Zach Meyer text 1.
It's over here in the folder.
Yeah, I thought I loaded them in, but maybe I didn't. If I didn't load them in. Here we go.
I'll give you a minute.
I got it.
Okay. So this is Agent Zach Meyer, both in August and September. First, he's instructing me. Keep in mind, this is an instruction from North Dakota BCI that the IRS wants me to hold everything at the site. Don't throw anything else away. And then telling me that he's pressing charges, which he's talking about, Bill Tuttle, says, I want to prepare charging docs. And then this is a couple of days before They realize that we still have missile stuff there, and then after that, things just go haywire.
So he literally wanted to prepare charging docks against Bill Tuttle.
Yeah, over 2 years ago.
Wow. And then he backs off.
And not only backs off, but changes sides and actually starts confusing people and apparently saying he's surprised I'm still alive.
Incredible statement.
But I'm under instruction from North Dakota BCI, apparently on behalf of the IRS, that I should destroy anything at the site.
Don't destroy.
They never changed it. The only one who tried was Brejo, but we quickly found out that none of that was legal. And
interesting.
Other agents said, no, you're being subjected to a cover-up.
Yeah.
You report to us. And then they would never change the instruction, even if they'd punt us to yet another agency.
Wow. Go to the next one?
Yeah, let's do the Hannah. Yep. So this is Hannah Lang, North Dakota Development Fund, basically saying, we think you act now, political repercussions will be minimal. This is early August as we start to find records that show us there's something wrong with this property.
Sorry, early August, what year?
2022.
Okay.
Sorry. So, yeah, you won't have as strong a case as if you wait. You definitely want something on file now, even if you aren't actually pressing charges. You don't want to get into a situation where you need to refile TINs, et cetera. And I say, okay, thank you. I feel the same way. And then I had a meeting by phone conference with Josh Teagan and Shaden Akison, Josh, the Commissioner of Commerce, and they were telling me I'll have their full support and they'll help us get the site cleaned up and work with North Dakota BCI Attorney General, et cetera. So then you can see Shaden and Zach Meyer liaising. So I give Shaden an introduction. He has to meet Zach Meyer.
Let's get that pulled up,
That's,
right?
the first one there.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yep.
Things are moving fast now.
Yeah, so we're August 16, 2022.
There we go.
Basically, it's just, hi, Craig, Shaden Akison, Head of Investments for ND Commerce. I'd like to speak with you regarding the matters we've been meeting over. Shaden oversees the fund investing into our company from the state. One of many investors that are with us, I should note. I've been holding confidential discussions with him in matters between the fund and our company will remain internal and confidential. Please feel free to discuss as needed with Shaden so that our key lender can be informed of pending matters. Now, key lender, why? Because we weren't able to mortgage the site once we started to find out what was hung up. Then, when we could mortgage it starting last year, the state tried to wreck our loans with the state side so that we couldn't mortgage it. Started making up accusations against us and things because we found the documents we're about to show that shows them connected to the crimes themselves.
So they tried to ruin your reputation with other banks.
Train wreck us, blackball us, smear us, and repeatedly sabotage us. Even tried to force us to backdate by force, instructed me to sign a backdated notarized mortgage agreement on a subordinated working capital credit line and hand the building over to the state.
So that would also be illegal to the notary, right?
Well, it would be, I believe from looking at North Dakota statute that it would have been a criminal attempt at forgery or counterfeiting.
Yeah.
Because it also would have changed security positions and hierarchy with other lenders.
Oh, yeah.
So, the number of times where people have tried to induce, incentivize, instruct, or threaten me to break the law, again, it's sickening. It should never have happened once.
Yeah.
And people are abusing public office. They're abusing positions in law enforcement, trying to scare me, intimidate me, get rid of me because too many people are tied to this one.
Right. Absolutely. So again, that's just showing that introduction.
Yeah, there's Shaden emailing Zach Meyer and asking for a time to meet. So just to show that it's not just me making the outreach, he's proactively getting himself involved with Zach Meyer, who then gets involved with Brejo. This is another one just to confirm. So publicly, that guy Michael Standert in Bismarck tried to do some smear articles on us and wrote an article saying like the school's tech center in Dunseith that was going to be this big RV center, it was dissolved because of us. Well, it was dissolved because the state instructed it to be dissolved because there was a physical threat made against my life from within the school system, which Scholl had confirmed. Scholl publicly tried to turn on me, I believe, to protect his job because Tuttle has influence over his job. He's got a very large family in the community. And
sorry,
go ahead.
Scholl is
superintendent of Dunseith Public Schools.
Okay. That's very good.
So here is an email between Scholl and I where I'm letting Scholl know we just found some weird checks. We don't know what Bill Tuttle's been up to, but he's, just transitioning to the school to go teach high school business, I guess, and run CTE projects. And then if you look at Scholl's reply at the top, that's the one I want to focus on.
Okay.
His reply is, "Thank you, Charles. And I let him know that he was fired. And he says, "This is news to me and frankly quite shocking. Hopefully further investigation will uncover the full extent of this ordeal. This info will be kept confidential on my end unless there are legal issues." So that's David Scholl's private response to me.
Wow.
His public response has been to attack me and claim that they're investigating me.
Incredible. Well, we're at an hour 40, and we're halfway through. We're doing well.
How are we?
We're doing well.
We're setting your record, right?
Yeah, that's
today?
right. We're breaking new barriers here.
So,
hopefully, you, the viewer, are enjoying it. This data dump.
Today, look, we can talk and talk and talk and talk, but we're just gonna show evidence today.
Right. Absolutely.
Tell us we're wrong.
Right. Yeah. And I do want to say, and I think this is a really good point, if there's other evidence out there, like, bring it up. At the Dakota specifically, we just want to create conversation. That's what our goal has been from day one. So if there's something that I want to bring this point up, reach out to us. Let us know. We'll take a look at it, and we're open to do a podcast with anybody. So
there we go.
All right, here we go. Some public docs.
Okay. So now these documents, the majority of them were dumped to us by the Botno Economic Development Corporation. So this one is from November 12, 2015. Excuse me again, witnesses are just careful redactions on certain individuals. But I want to note, here's the group that's involved getting this facility into state's control. This is 4 days before ownership transition. You got Paul Lucy, he's EDNF Director for Commerce. You got Erin Shanley, she's with Indian Affairs. Scott Davis, Bergham's Executive for Indian Affairs. Laura Willard from Commerce. Bill Davis, who is Acting Director for USDA. Lisa Gibbons, who is currently the State Director for U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer. And then Harvey Van Sciver. If you go down just a little bit, I just want to double check. So they're starting to get folks put together. USDA, EDA, they're starting to figure out how to coordinate money. They're using Starion Bank's financial IVN system to host the meetings from the Bismarck-Mandan area. There's Kristen Hammond's name as well, who's a regional director for Senator Hoeven. And they're using the Dunseith branch to host these meetings, which quickly becomes focused around Chiptronics and Bill Tuttle. So if we just go on through, this is the wind-up, the handover in December from Benchmark to the city of Dunseith. Just a lot of notes for what they're working on in the transition. Then here they've got a note, $50,000 for the city for equipment and maintenance, ND Commerce, each employee $35,000. They're starting to work on grants already. $125,000. I believe that's an investment that the city had made into renovating the south part of the building. $50,000 is equipment that they're getting ready to give to Chiptronics. Chiptronics didn't actually pay for it. They did a lease to own, and I've seen the documents on that.
Interesting.
So then we can just scroll to the bottom just so people see, these are what the chip presentations look like.
Yeah.
No need to flip this one because there's nothing consequential. But they're basically getting ready to start working on leads, working with Commerce, getting a website up, etc. So if you want to go to the next one, that's where it does get pretty consequential.
Okay.
And this is the beginning of 2016. And keep in mind, we only have a fraction of the records. Botno EDC sent an email, which we'll share, saying that their records were lost when their email system was destroyed and they only had hard copies.
It's a pattern.
And we only found hard copies at the factory.
What's up with email systems in North Dakota? I don't know, man.
Emails in North Dakota tend to go missing, it seems. So, again, if you look at the names, let's go up to the top there, same names. You got Lisa Gibbons again, Kristen Hammond. So you got Senator Kramer and Hoefer, both with reps on these emails, and you got Scott Davis, Executive Director for Indian Affairs, and not too many locals. Always have these presentations, are always working on different projects and grants and money. But aerospace and defense starts getting introduced now as a primary focus, and we can go on down and see that. So here they're starting to try and set lines up. Again, more grants. You'll see the word grant appear all the time because they're always working on grants. We'll have to flip the screen for the next slides. No worries.
Let's go ahead and get that flipped. We don't need that one flipped, but let's get this one, and I'll flip it the wrong way for you.
Get them upside down for me.
Yeah, that way it works
Challenge me a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, so as soon as you can...
There you go.
Yep, open that. So then we'll scroll on down here. This is just getting the lines set up in manufacturing.
Give me 1 second here.
Yep.
And let's just flip all these real fast.
Yep.
Get it taken care of.
There we go. Okay. Then we can get rid of the sidebar too.
Yeah, let's do it. Boom.
Living on the edge now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, got their ISO certification. They brag about this about every year in their records, that they get an ISO 9001, which I want to highlight. There's like 50 million businesses roughly that have that. It's just a cookie cutter certification. It has nothing to do with aerospace. What they need, and they know they need it, is AS 9100, and then other things related to solder and other stuff. So,
okay.
Think of ISO 9001 as tying your shoe.
Okay.
And then you still need to get a driver's license.
Right. There's still a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's been described to me by people in the industry that they took step 1 and they needed to take steps 1 through 10.
Okay.
So they never bothered to change Chiptronics from a non-manufacturer to a manufacturer with the Department of Defense. So, oops.
So they never changed from a non-manufacturer to a manufacturer.
They never got an AS 9100 or equivalent aerospace electronics qualification.
Right.
They never got a solder qualification.
They didn't. Based off what you saw, the facility, it wasn't always a static facility.
The environmental controls to control humidity, which would also help control static, were removed off the building. I was told it was a $600,000 install to replace it, and they never did.
Okay.
They started using loading docks, which were not static safe at all.
Okay.
They stopped cleaning the facility. They stopped maintaining the facility, so you lose your dust-free environment.
Mm-hmm.
They started introducing welding and plasma operations within the building. They started introducing hardware and housing authority storage into the building. They started driving trucks and skid steers all throughout the building. They brought an Army vehicle manufacturing company into the building.
And they were still conducting stuff in the building while that...
On these sensors, and all this is continuing to go on and on and on in the background. So,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
There were no controls followed.
Right.
So they're saying they need it. Let's just go on down. Keep going. Maybe stop on the next slide. Just stop there and then continue. I mean, okay. I don't even know why they talk about some of the things they talk about in these slides.
Yeah.
But that's how I know that there should have been extra steps to close the property.
Right.
And those steps weren't taken by government, and to my knowledge yet have not been confirmed that they've been properly taken.
It's crazy.
I have a feeling a lot of people might need to get fired in DOD for not doing this one right. So that last slide you had,
you actually want that one.
That was an important one. So, yep, very bottom.
Okay.
Next one down.
There we go.
There we go. So here, just in case the officials, needed some extra confirmation at the state and federal level, Hoefer and Kramer's teams, head of USDA, commerce people, just to make sure that they knew that they shouldn't be doing this, Bill Tuttle lets them know. We shouldn't be doing this because I met with major A&D companies, aerospace and defense. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Textron, Boeing, Raytheon. AS9100 cert out of gate requirement, 1 to 2 year process. Possible quicker play on ground business.
Okay.
Things that don't fly.
Right, that's what ground business would
There
mean.
we go.
Makes sense.
So
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there was an alert potentially that was sent out.
They were aware, and I've had people that have been compliant witnesses have all said they knew they weren't qualified and have told me that they've explained the ways in which things happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that those explanations are relevant right now. Basically just hinting that it was just set up.
Okay.
And indicating that many corners were cut and they just did it.
Yeah.
So some specific names have been given, some people inside the defense industry, one in particular, and I'm still waiting to find documents for me to repeat that name. But I have a pretty good idea how they did it and who they used in order to do it.
Incredible.
And none of it would have been by any government standard or federal law compliant.
Yeah.
Not at all. So just another set of records. Again, go up. Same names, same people. We're into, how do we pull up a 2018 one already?
Well,
is that 16 or? 16. Sorry. Very far away from my eyes right here. So just scroll down a little bit and down a little further. I think it's this one if we keep going. Yep. So there, Chiptronics operating solder. So you got a sales entity that's now operating solder stations.
Gotcha.
Like a month or two after they just said they're not supposed to do things that fly.
Yeah. Incredible.
And again, always working on grants. You'll see grants and money all over these presentations.
Interesting. Definitely a key.
My initial estimates was that I was thinking there was like $750,000 total in monies that went in. And then I just recently stumbled on a sentence that said $1.5 million from the Department of Commerce in process. And, I learned about a research grant that I hadn't known about. So as you stack up the potential money between local, state, and federal that went into supporting this activity, it's a lot of money. So our own government, taxpayer dollars, are supporting the potentially fraudulent and or counterfeit and or substandard work on a flight critical component in commercial aerospace.
It's mind-numbing.
Again, working on Lockheed, doing other stuff. Let's just keep going. Some of this doesn't... You could see the officials too, and that's one of the things officials told me is, they said, look, we were trying to populate the building. Okay. They said that they would often rely on the people connected to Bill or to other defense contractors to tell them, they could do it. And they said if they were given the work or Bill got the work, they didn't ask too many questions.
Gotcha.
Others said they simply didn't know or were never informed, and others said they felt like they were incredibly deceived or misled.
Wow. What's
interesting is the people who've never spoken, Hoefer, Kramer likes to say these are state issues.
Right.
Doesn't want to talk about it. People in commerce, people at the state level, the attorney general, they won't talk about these records.
Mm-hmm.
There's been someone very prominent who's an elected official in the state capital who tried to suggest that the records might have been faked. We've had many witnesses come forward and confirm as meeting participants, yeah, this happened. These are real records.
Wow.
And so let's go to the next one.
Next document?
Yep. Going up to the top there.
That sad bar. All right, let's get to the top.
I just want to keep showing people every time these meetings go, and we were told that they were monthly. So every time these meetings go, same people, Hoefer, Kramer's people, Indian Affairs, Commerce, USDA. And we can go on down here a little bit. Oh, let's go up right there. So the name Melk and AIC Solutions. So Melk pops up a few times, at least twice in these documents.
Okay.
Connected to Trenton Oil Fields. Tribe. If you want to just Google his name, keep in mind we found B-52 files at this site, right?
Right.
And he's got public connections to Chinese money, and I was told that he was working on trying to bring a Chinese company to this site by a witness.
Interesting.
And I've got a record of that, so I'm okay to repeat what the witness said. It's not my assertion. I can't prove it, but I can prove his name in the records.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a headline right there. I don't know if that shows up, but it's China using a Native American front.
All right, let's show it.
So, again, I don't know what website we're looking at here, but...
Right. HPR1.com. There you go.
And there's AIC Solutions, and we just saw AIC written in the document as well.
Right.
So an oil company with deep ties to Chinese state-owned enterprises is attempting to quietly set up a refinery near a historical site in western North Dakota.
Interesting.
So, and there's Jay Melk, president of AIC, which is a subsidiary of AIC Solutions Group. And where does it talk about the...
don't know.
So they're China right there, just up a paragraph. One more paragraph up. Yeah, so AIC Solutions merged with Anhui Guangda Mining Investment Company in China, according to the company's website. So that AIC is looking at this property while this property is doing government, commercial aerospace, and military work and still retaining missile parts and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay.
So
we're back to the PDF here.
Yep. So then if we go to the next slide, it starts to become just interesting names that get connected into this site. I mean, so there's Epic Solutions. They've appeared at least twice in the documents.
Okay.
I think
who might that be talking about?
Some recent Minot news about Epic this year.
Yep.
Then it says Chiptronics Inc. and they know wrong there, the date, because that was 3/23/2017 is what wrong means. Chiptronics Inc. and then a box there, separate entity partnered with Benchmark. So the note taker here is obviously really trying to make sure they understand who's who and what's what, and taking a lot of notes. And, again, working on a grant with USDA, successfully completed their ISO 9001 audit. I mean, congratulations, you tied your shoes.
Right, yeah, for sure. Moving on to customer marketing.
So let's go down. So their rework opportunity for Honeywell product, ongoing volume picking up. So they're just noting that they're working on Honeywell product already. And then they're working on a Research ND grant, got it approved.
It's crazy.
And then down there, DLA set aside. That means Defense Logistics Agency. Does that show up on your... There we go. That's on the screen now. DLA set aside requested Senator Hoeven assistance, $1.5 million per year circuit cards.
Wow.
So...
Moving on.
Yep.
We got lots of this stuff. We have 15 of these, which is crazy.
Yeah, there's many more from what I'm told.
Right.
This is just, what was there. So again, Chip is promoting itself now as a manufacturer. There's Trenton Oil Refinery listed in the meeting minutes.
Right there.
We're still at the 2016 or 17. Same people pretty much in all the meetings. A guy named Rick Collin from Kramer's office starts to join. Lisa Gibbons on the names. He's already there now. So
Yep, right there.
Yeah, we're in 2017. Again, so Chip is promoting itself and saying, we're switching to manufacturer. There's Epic again, if you scroll down a little bit.
Question mark.
Showing up.
For 2017.
And then...
Go ahead and hide the sidebar.
Yep.
Keeps coming back.
Working on Lockheed. Going down. And again, these are uncontrolled public records.
Yeah.
Indian Affairs should have a copy. Commerce should have a copy.
Right.
Starion Bank, Botno EDC, City of Dunseith. So, and then what was that one? The next slide up, I think. Yeah, rework opportunity for Honeywell, ongoing volume picking up over 3,000, meaning 3,000 units since September 16th, 900 since March 17th.
So it's picking up steam.
This is an early 2017 report.
Right.
So they're saying 3,900 units of rework.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I think we can just move down to the bottom. There's that DLA set aside, and now that's the thing they requested Senator Hoeven's assistance on, and now they've changed the price to $4 million a year.
Wow.
And they previously noted that it was defense circuits.
Wow.
So
there we go.
And I think, we can just kind of blow through.
Yeah, if you want.
These.
Want to just go through them
just
real fast?
Go through really fast.
Okay.
So that one is just...
Stop for a minute.
Yeah, well, the Department of Commerce there, there's that $1.5 million in process. Again, the name Milk pops up again.
Yeah.
And then just go down a little bit.
Okay.
And why again? Don't know. Just keep on going. Some of the things they meet with and go over, it just makes you scratch your head and say, what
are we doing, guys?
What are we doing here? But yeah, there's bench rework. If you go back up, yeah. Right there, ongoing about 500 units per month. They just keep noting the rework. Have no idea what the actual amounts they were getting paid are.
Okay.
Because they were keeping dual records at the site. There was a record of a $2 million property being bought that was left personally by an individual in this scheme.
Wow.
And so, there's record of a huge cash pile being held at the time that they were defaulted in 2019, but the record that was given to the officials said that they were out of cash.
Wow. Interesting.
And it was masked as a liability in a separate financial record that was found on the same date. But then over the next 1 to 2 years, all these checks were written out to reduce the liability and pay a person as a vendor.
Interesting.
So, and that was all found hidden at the site.
At the site.
Actual records.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy. That site was a treasure trove of information.
Yeah. I'm almost wondering if we shouldn't get through the public records here and call this part 1.
Yeah.
Because we still have a huge chunk of... I mean, we haven't even gotten to the nefarious stuff of proving how they masqueraded, how they disguised the shipments, how the bar was marked out on the parcels. I mean, we have all that evidence too.
Yeah.
And this is all during these time periods. I mean, some of the records to keep things like off the books or to do those no value cost item transactions were starting in late 2016.
Wow.
So
yeah. So we'll finish this up.
Yep.
Call it part 1, and then we'll probably have 2 or 3 episodes of evidence.
I think we could probably get through maybe part 2 gets through the second round of this, and then after that, I think we can talk cover up, which is a whole nother set of evidence, which might be part 1 and 2.
Yeah, they might be 2 parts of that
crazy.
too. It's just crazy that there's that much information that's had. Normally, there's a lot of speculation that goes on, and there's not. There's a lot of information to back up what's being said here.
We might even. I mean, we're getting on the 2-hour mark, aren't we?
Yeah, we're at 2 hours.
So yeah, I mean, we could probably pick up from here.
You want to do that?
Why don't we do that? Because I think there's still a whole bunch of records, and then there's some stuff we found at the site that corroborate getting into that abrupt default, tying it to when that other group that does military work flees off the site and leaves hundreds of thousands of dollars of possessions and a bloody room behind.
They just leave it.
Yeah, leave it, along with emptied wallets that we find where we can't figure out who they belong to.
Interesting.
So
they were... I mean, anytime you leave your wallet, you got to be in a rush. There's
your
gotta be a reason.
toothbrush, your toiletries, your suitcases. You leave your
personal belongings.
$200,000 to $300,000 Army vehicle behind. You leave your cowboy boots behind. I don't know how many cowboys leave their cowboy boots behind.
Yeah. These guys were from Texas or somewhere?
That's as far as they were from around.
Around? No, we don't know.
I've traced them, and I've been able to confirm.
Well, where do cowboys come?
3.
They're either from Dickinson, Oklahoma, or
I want to say a
Mexico.
couple of them have shared things with me, and so I want to keep the names for now. Just we'll call them witnesses, and it's one of them scared of the FBI, and the other one told me some things about what went on at the site.
Yeah.
And when I said some people want me to leave, he said I wouldn't be surprised.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for letting us do an actual dive and show this.
Thank you for, I would say 2 hours of your time, but really it's been a lot. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time compiling this evidence and then going from there. So it's incredible the work that you've done. Just to hear this story, backed by actual evidence that we're able to take a look at. Appreciate you coming on today. We'll have to do this again. Again, we didn't get through as much as we thought. We thought we were going to get through all the stuff.
We thought we'd get through, and I think we still have
at least an hour, maybe more.
Maybe 2.
Yeah, stuff to go through.
To go through still.
So
we're just getting started.
We'll make this part 1, and then there'll be a part 2. I understand. First off, this is very interesting. This might not be the type of podcast that you listen to while you're going down the road, because it's actually a little bit interactive as you actually get to see the information being presented. It's a little bit different than perhaps other styles that we have done here at the Dakotan. So take your time, go through it, see what's actually going on, see the case that's being presented. And I think you're going to be able to start seeing more attention being drawn to the story around the state even perhaps. So thank you again for coming on. We will announce to everybody when we have part 2 of the evidence coming out. But for now, thank you for watching this one. Be sure to like and subscribe, become part of the Dakotan community. Thank you for watching this episode, and go ahead and have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the video that you just watched. Of course, this is episode 2 in a several part series. If you have not watched episode 1, I encourage you to go back and watch the first episode in the Dunseith Debacle. I would like to again share a quick word of advisement. The episode that you just listened to and saw, there was a lot of information that was shared by Mr. Charles Hoefer, which has been verified by Hoefer Group, their attorney, and in part other third parties as factual evidence. The Dakotan has not independently authenticated the materials. The opinions and views expressed in this video, in this podcast, are solely those of the guest that was interviewed. They do not reflect my own views or the views of the Dakotan. Our goal, again, is just to provide a platform for open conversation. Thanks for watching this episode, and be sure to like and subscribe and become part of the Dakotan community. Thank you, and have a great day.